Hello Wonderland, Kelly here. It is my travel day coming home from Florida back to Virginia. And I really want to get home, so I'm not making many stops. In fact, this is probably, aside from lunch and gas, my only actual stop to stretch my legs today. I am at Woods Bay State Park in South Carolina. And I feel like my videos tend to be too much travelogue and too little photography. And I'm trying to get out of that habit. So what I have had in mind to do, kind of as I make other videos, but in this case I'm just going to kind of make it this video, is to really focus on, pun intended, the photography and find a composition or three that strike me as good shots, good images, and then kind of take you through from the shooting piece. I could find me, there I am. From actually shooting the image to processing. So hopefully, I've been to this park before on a previous trip, and it's got a few nice spots. So hoping to find a few good things to shoot, put together a couple compositions that I can show you how I'm shooting them, and then once I get back home and I'm doing the editing, I can take you through that piece too. So that's the plan. I'm coming up on, let me flip around here, there's a boardwalk here, which is pretty nice. That's the main reason I'm back. Last time I saw some gators as well, so that was good. So yeah, let's see down this boardwalk what we can find. And maybe make a nice shot or two here. I already like it. Okay, let's go. My timing isn't great today, unfortunately. You can kind of see down here in the water these posts. The water's higher than it was last time I was here, and I'm sure that's because of the hurricane that just went through this region not too long ago. But over there, last time there was a platform where gators could kind of pull up and rest, and that's where I saw a couple. Not seeing any today, and it's mid-afternoon, early afternoon, so the lighting isn't great either. But the water is pretty still, and I like the reflections, so I still feel like we can do something here. So let me find a composition I like, and then I'll walk you through that. Okay, so I think here, obviously I like the boardwalk as a leading line, and I like how it curves around the corner there. This cypress tree right here, a little bit in the foreground with a good reflection. I like that. And they stretch up pretty tall, so I think I'm actually going to go with a portrait orientation. So let me see here. Swap my screen around. So I am obviously shooting the R5 Mark II, of course, and I've got the RF 10 to 20 millimeter on there, and I'm at about 12 and a half, 13 millimeters, and that is giving me, let me brighten this up so you can see a little better, hopefully. Pretty good. I can get to the top of the tree there, I can get the boardwalk in. Yeah, so I'm going to focus. I'm using just manual focusing point right now. I'm going to put the focus, if I could stay on the screen, that'd be good. This is hard to do one-handed. I'm going to put the focus right about there as the boardwalk is leading away. I'm overexposing the sky a little here, so I'm going to dial it down. I'm at f10, ISO 100. I'm going to go with a shutter speed of 1/125th. And that's giving me blue in the sky, which I like. It's put in the foreground in shadow, but I think that'll be easy to recover. I'm using my leveling lines to level the horizon and keep it pretty straight. And I'll go right about there. Then I can chimp that real quick. And I think that looks pretty good. A little bit of, you see the flashing going on there. That's a little bit of overexposed right through the middle of the sky where the clouds are, but I think that's okay. And I think the rest should clean up pretty nicely. So we'll edit that one. Let's see how it goes. All right, back at home, back at the desk. Let's do some editing. Okay, so we were looking at this photo right here from Woods Bay State Park in South Carolina. This is the straight out of camera raw image that we're looking at. I haven't touched this one. As you recall, 1/125th of a second, f10, about 12 millimeters, ISO 100, looking pretty good. But obviously you can see the foreground, the boardwalk and everything, pretty dark. Sky looks good. These trees are decent. The ones in the sunlight are okay, but pretty wide range of tonality going on there. So what I like to do, and I usually use presets, but my favorite preset, what it basically starts with is taking down the highlights a bit, cranking up the shadows quite a bit. As I've said before, go about plus 90 there. Yeah, pretty high on the shadows. With digital cameras, especially modern digital cameras, the highlights, once you've blown them, you really can't get them back. But the shadows, if you underexpose, there's still plenty of detail in there. So you can really see, and this was R5.2 obviously, reflections come back pretty nicely when I bring the shadows back or up. Boardwalk comes out pretty good, but we'll get to that. Okay. So when you start an edit, or as you get into your photographic lifestyle, you kind of develop an editing style, I think. Mine I kind of call reality plus 1 or 2 or 5, depending on the scene. So what I like to do is really crank the colors a bit, just to be more vivid, more vibrant, and that really kind of brings it to life for me. White balance looks decent. This is auto settings. I almost want to take that a little bit cooler. Tint looks pretty good. I'm going to go towards green tiny bit. Actually, I'm going to leave that at plus 11, which was the auto setting. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, so we brought up the shadows. I like to make sure that I've got either the horizon is level or I've got something that's vertical in the scene. So I used the level in the camera, but that doesn't always help make things really orthogonal. I feel like this water line is probably pretty horizontal, but this tree is kind of what stands out to me. So what I kind of want to do, and when I framed it, you can see I kind of put that tree on the rule of thirds line, and I like that. So I am gonna make that tree just a little straighter and crop in just a tiny bit, so I'm keeping it pretty well on that rule of thirds line. It's a subtle thing, but I kind of like that. Okay, tone curve, we'll look at that. I'm going to bring my darks up just a little, lights up just a touch, highlights down a little. I feel like I'm losing a little detail in these trees if I blow out those highlights, but otherwise that's pretty good. Colors, I tend to like to make my greens a little bit more greenish. Yellows, in this case, I'm going to go a little towards green on that as well. This orange I like, but if I do much with it, it affects the boardwalk as well, and I don't want to do too much of that. And then that orange will also respond to the red a little bit, so I'm going to make my red a little more orange, just to make this cypress back here come alive a little bit. One thing I did not do, I like to add a bit of texture, especially in a landscape, and if I've got something like wood grain going on. Clarity tends to help a bit as well, just to make your brights a little brighter, darks a little darker. It's kind of contrast, but different.
Dehaze in this case, a little bit of it looks like it does something I like. All right, that is pretty good. Now my little trick that I like to do, I'm gonna zoom out. I'm gonna go up here and add a radio filter. I want to just liven up this boardwalk in the foreground a little bit. So I'm actually gonna start outside of the frame, come up here a little, tilt this over just a touch so it's following the boardwalk. I'm gonna make this a little bit less feathered. Bring that back down here. And then what that's gonna do for me is let me brighten up the boardwalk. And I'm going to warm it up just a bit as well. And a little bit of tint. And then if I go back to fit, I think that looks pretty decent. I tend to add in a little bit of vignette as well, just around the corners. And trick here, if you hold the Alt key while you move a slider, you can see what you're getting. So I'm going to bring that in towards the center just a little and make it a little bit rounder. And feather it a little bit more as well. And that makes it a more gradual. So another subtle thing, but I kind of like that. All right, I think I would call that pretty much done. That was a fairly quick edit. Nothing to clean up in terms of cloning anything out or anything like that. Might bring the highlights up just a touch. I like a little more contrast in the reflections down here is what I'm looking for. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay. Then, while I'm at it, I took this one at the same time, pretty much, just as a landscape version. Same exposure settings. I was in manual. So if I just want to select this one, control click to select that one, sync those settings, that should make it pretty similar. Yep, that looks pretty good. And let me do that little trick. I didn't copy the filter over because I knew it wouldn't line up in the same way. I'm going to make this a little more round. And that's a little bit brighter, a little bit more shadow action, a little bit warmer, touch on the tint, more than that, about that. Could add a little more texture in there as well, just to bring out the wood of the boardwalk, I think. Go to 100% here. Yeah, that's not too shabby. All right, I like those. It's a pretty place. Okay, back to me.
I don't feel like a lot of people come to this park and do this hike because it is kind of out in the country. And yeah, it's not a real big park or anything, but it's nice. Can't say I've found anything else that really has struck me, though what I'm seeing over here might be good. Let's wander over here a little bit. Let's see. When I'm in swampy country, like I am here, and there's lots of cypress trees around, I tend to look for scenes that have a lot of cypress knees, which are those short little rooty things popping up out of the ground. Those are how the cypress tree roots and spreads and stays secure in wet ground. But that one doesn't really do it for me. I think that the boardwalk area would have been good for that if the water hadn't been so high. I think there's a lot of cypress knees underwater there. Okay, keep going. I am seeing a lot of Carolina anoles, which makes sense given that I'm in the Carolinas. They're cute little green lizards that actually can change color. We used to call them chameleons because they can change color from green to brown, even though they aren't actually chameleons. But yeah, they used to be real common in Florida when I was a kid. Catch them all the time. But then the Cuban anole, brown anole, moved in instead and kind of took over their ground level habitat. and forced all the Carolina animals to move up into the trees. So they're a lot harder to find down there now. But around here, they're everywhere. I guess the Cubans have not moved into this area, which is good. They are an invasive. And I'm back at the end of the trail. So that one shot might be all we're going to get out of this particular video. Sorry if this was short, but hopefully that edited well. You'll only be seeing this if it did. But yeah. That's okay. I need to hit the road and get home. I'm ready to be home. So, bugs. Hopefully this was educational, informative, stimulating, all that stuff. Yeah, till next time. Actually, heading back to the highway, and I found a roadside scene here. Old barn over there, and cotton field. And that's Old South, right? So I thought that might be an interesting composition if I can get, thinking down fairly low here, where I've got the cotton in the foreground and the barn in the back. And the sky is pretty interesting today, so that might be good. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so here's what I'm looking at. I'm gonna magnify and make sure I'm focusing on the barn there. I'm actually doing HDR on this. So I'm doing 3 images. I'm at ISO 500, that's too high. Let's go to 200. I'm at f8, I'm gonna go to f10. Yeah, sorry, bugs are getting me here. Gonna meter right here on the cotton, I think, and aim it up a bit so I'm seeing sky. And there we go. And hopefully, let me chimp those real quick here. Good way. Yeah. Yeah, that might be okay. If it is, I'll show it to you.
Okay, now for this one, I shot at HDR. I shot an HDR bracket. Really didn't need to do that, I don't think. If I take a look at my base exposure here, this is not too bad. It's a little bright, especially in the sky. And you can tell this tree line and this side of the barn are pretty shadowed, but there's detail there. And that would come back fairly easily in post. But since I shot at HDR, and I haven't really shown an HDR on the channel, I will go ahead and process it as an HDR. So these were my 3 frames. So I've got my base exposure, my -2, and my +2. And I was at 20 millimeters here on the 10 to 20 millimeter lens, f8, 1/640th, ISO 500. It's probably playing with my settings a little from the one I actually shot on camera. But anyway, if I select the 3 of those, right click one of them, photo merge to HDR. And this is usually pretty quick, even with the R5 and R5.2's large files. So you get a preview. The only real settings that you have here, auto align, you're always going to want, really, even if you were on a tripod, and I rarely am for HDR, so I always do auto align. I let it go ahead and do auto settings. You can always undo that and start over if you don't like it. And then the deghost is for if anything was moving in the frame. You know, tree limbs blowing in the wind, a flag flying, people moving through, although I don't usually do HDR in that case. But in this case, this was a pretty static scene, shot it pretty quickly, no need to deghost anything. So I'll leave that at none, and then we merge. And it will do its thing and re-import that HDR DNG image, which is here. So here you can kind of see, this is the HDR we're looking at. So it restored some detail by default here to the tree line, and the side of the barn is a little bit brighter. To me, it made the sky a little bit poppier. This is the neutral exposure from the HDR bracket, and that's the HDR, so you can see a little more contrast in the sky. So if we go to develop this one, once again, I'm going to basically start, oh, these are the settings that it defaulted to. So it already reduced my highlights and boosted my shadows a bit. I'm going to boost the shadows just a little more. Highlights, I think I like what it did there. White balance looks decent to me. I might warm just a little. Yeah. And I'm going to tend towards green just a touch. So +9 is where it was. I'll go down to +4. Not pretty subtle there too. If I look at the crop on this, looks reasonably good. The tree line, I'm going to go so with that tree line where the cotton meets the tree line is my horizontal. So that only needed a little tweak. Looking for things to clean up. So this, whatever it was, piece of trash over here, I'm going to get rid of that with just a simple clone heal tool, healing tool. I just don't like distractions. The power line I don't mind too much. Power pole over here, that's okay. That looks natural in the scene to me. Again, saturation up, and vibrance, I'm going to go up a little bit. Add some texture, clarity. Clarity doesn't do too much for me here. And dehaze, I don't really want too much more contrast in there either, so I'm going to leave that alone. Down here in the tone curve, I'm going to boost my darks and my shadows just a little. I just want that tree line to pop a little bit more. Hue, again, I'm going to make my greens a little more green, or a lot more green. And yellow, I think I'm going to do something similar. This clay soil here is pretty yellow orangish, so I could make that a little more orange or a little more yellow. I'm going to go a little more orange. And the red is mostly the barn's roof. So that's okay. Saturation, green up a little, orange up a little, red up a bit as well. And I'm going to go blue up a bit, just to make the sky a little more bluish. And in fact, hue on blue, I'm going to tweak that just a touch as well. Like a +3, pretty subtle. And that's looking decent to me, but obviously, what am I on? Oh, I'm on that. That's not what I wanted. All right, there we go. Barn's looking okay, but the barn is really the star of the show here, right? So I kind of want to draw the eye into that. So how I'm going to do that is my vignette, just to darken those edges a little bit. Bring that in towards the barn. And then I'm going to do another radial gradient. This is kind of my go-to these days. I'm going to bring that almost all the way over there, and I'm going to feather it more as well. And I'm going to make the barn a little warmer. Boost the shadows a little bit. Add some texture in there. And just a notch up on exposure maybe. And that again is a subtle change. But if I turn that on and off, you can kind of see it just really livens up that area where the barn is. And kind of with that combined with the vignette, I think helps draw the eye in. The cotton in here is cool. I'm gonna brighten my whites just a little to make that pop a little more. And bring back a little bit of highlight as well. So I definitely want that to stand out. This path with the orange, I think I'm going to do a linear gradient here. So I just want to darken that up a little so it doesn't stand out quite so much. And shadows, I'm going to do shadows up, but highlights and whites down, and exposure down a little. And then there you can kind of see that, just tones that down a little, makes it stand out a bit less. That's not a great image to me, but it's decent. I'll take it. Okay. Now, I don't think I wrapped up on scene, so I'll do that here. Hope this was useful. Short video. I'd like to do this a little more often. Either a standalone video like this or kind of a second video when I'm out filming something else. Here's a composition I like. Let's shoot it. Let's get it back to the desk and edit it. And then you kind of get the whole start to finish process. Yeah. And hopefully get some tips along the way that you can use. That's the idea. So I hope this was useful. Let me know one way or the other. Preferably yes. Okay. And until next time, be good to yourself. Take care of each other. Don't forget to be awesome. Get out and wander. Later.